Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Deep Focus Show. I'm Aiden,
I'm Clay.
I'm Davi.
and our fourth host, Max, is in absentia today, but we will be showing his thoughts at the end of the video. We recorded it separately. And today, our movie we're covering for the 50s series is Dial M for Murder, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, released in 1954. It's based on a play and stars Ray Milland as the lead with many twists, many turns. Do you guys have familiarity with this movie? And if so, kind of what was it?
This is the first Hitchcock movie I've seen. And I've heard the name before, and Andrew told me that one of the movies that I've seen recently and that was made like in the late 90s was basically took a lot of inspiration from this film. So I kind of understood the concept before going in. And I was curious how the original was. So
Yeah, it's my third Hitchcock movie. I haven't seen a lot. I've seen Psycho and Rear Window, but yeah, knew the title. Um, I don't know. I didn't know too much about the film, but it's got kind of familiarity to like something like Agatha Christie novel, or I don't know, some sort of murder mystery type of things. Yeah,
we're actually
you
doing Rear Window next, so it's funny
Yeah,
you should.
yeah.
that'll be the next
Yeah.
50s episode. Um, Same year actually as this, 54. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I'd seen this one. I saw this movie for the first time maybe like a year ago because it was one of Andrew's picks for like Best Picture when we were doing the Oscar series of the 50s. And it was one of the big Hitchcocks I still hadn't seen. So I checked it out on his recommendation. And yeah, because I'd seen, Rear Window, I'd seen North by Northwest, Psycho, Rope, a lot of the big ones, but I was still missing some of these. So yeah, so I checked it out off of that recommendation. And yeah, so Clay, if you want to start us off with your review of the film, go ahead.
Sure. For starters, I really like this movie quite a bit. It stars Grace Kelly, Cummings, and Ray Milland, like you said. The premise: Tony Windus, played by Ray, discovers that his wife Margot, played by Grace Kelly, is cheating on him. So Tony tells his friend Charles Swan, played by Anthony Dawson, about the affair, and he opens up that he wants to kill his wife to get her inheritance. Like I said at the beginning, I did watch the movie A Perfect Murder before this, which borrows a lot of themes from this movie. But unlike the husband being rich in that film, the wife is rich here. So that's kind of the motivation why Tony wants to kill his wife so he can get that inheritance. And the phrase "a perfect murder" is actually mentioned in this movie, interestingly enough. Uh, Anyways, Tony blackmails Dawson into getting him to do the job of murdering his wife. I like Tony's sly, cunning tone whenever he's talking Dawson into killing his wife. It's quite sinister and sneaky. He really convinces him. So the scene is set for the perfect murder, and it gets tense as Margot said that she wants to go see a movie, but Tony insists that she stays home. The way Tony kind of convinces her to stay home so that Dawson can go through with the murder would definitely kind of give me red flags, but alas, Margot falls for it and stays. In the way Tony he has to place a key under the staircase so that Dawson can enter into the room, and the way he places that key under the staircase was so noticeable. I feel like I would notice that. But anyways, Dawson ends up trying to kill Grace, but ultimately fails. Um, and that kind of scene is so over dramatic. It's almost funny. Because just the way they're quarreling, it's kind of over the top, but I guess that's kind of what they did back in the 50s. They kind of had that. Um, John Williams comes in after everything is said and done. He makes a great detective. I like the scene where he's speaking to Margot and Tony. It's quite tense. And then Tony comes up with the lie saying that Dawson copied the key, and the detective kind of calls bluff. And the big issue that I have with this film is Margot is convicted of the crime and spends pretty much the second half of the film on death row. I would have liked her to be around a little bit more, to have sort of a stronger female lead instead of this poor damsel who gets pinned on for the murder. I wanted her to pick on what had happened, much like the remake does. But at the end, it's just left up all to the other men's devices to solve this, and I feel like that isn't fair. I guess it's kind of cutting edge for the time. Like the man always has to solve the problems, huh? But it's all right. I really did like the scene where um at the end Tony is the detective leads Tony away to go to the police station. And then Tony realizes that he has the misplaced key, and you're kind of seeing that whole act unfold. That was really tense. But overall, this movie's really thrilling. I'm giving it 4 stars because I'm sure it was very original for the time. But I do prefer the remake because I thought the liberties they took with that film was much better than just sort of the second half of this film, which really falls short for me. I like the first half of the film a lot, and parts of the second half does work, like what I was mentioning before. But overall, yeah, 4 stars. Um, it's a good watch, and I probably wouldn't recommend watching the remake first because uh you know it's probably best to watch this film first instead of the remake, um because I knew what to expect going into here. But yeah, it's a good film.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even know about the remake or like yeah, this is based on a play, so probably based on the same play. But yeah,
It's pretty good. The remake stars Michael Douglas and Gwyneth Paltrow, um and
hmm, late 90s was it?
late 90s. Yeah, it's called A Perfect Murder.
Hmm, nice. Maybe I'll check it out one day. I don't know. But yeah, Dial M for Murder. Definitely an interesting watch. Liked it a lot. I kind of was in some ways it kind of follows similar paths as this type of films, uh, probably past and present usually do, but it was quite thrilling and um, I don't know, I kind of like the way they set up the ending, the sort of proving the innocence of the Grace Kellys um, and and well the that he knew that the key is there sort of thing of the Ray Milland's character and so on. But um, it was funny that this film has intermission. It was like I don't know, it's just a 1 minute thing, but um, I didn't realize that they had because it's not that long of a film, but I don't know what was the thing back then. But um, I think Ray Milland the lead actor, is probably my favorite performance here. He kind of, well, he kind of has to play some sort of see that um, sort of different types. Is he the killer perhaps, or is he innocent or victim of, or and so I've and Grace Kelly's great too. Uh, she's she's definitely gorgeous here, and but yeah, I really, I don't know even what to say. It's some sort of murder mystery based on one place for most of the part, and it's got some nice little things going on, little twists and turns, and um, I don't know, like I don't know what I call it pacing issues, but I feel like maybe it took a little bit to get going with the talking to like that Svan, I think it was his name, and like but I kind of get it too, especially for the time, and um but it was a yeah, I kind of like this kind of movies. It's I don't really have many flaws to it, to be honest, but so it's a 4.5 to me. It's not perhaps a 5-star film, but it's great still. So yeah, Thailand for Murder.
It's tough because there's countless remakes of Hitchcock films. I'm sure there's like probably 7 or 8 different variations of the next one we're gonna do, Rear Window. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
No, definitely true. Yeah, it's difficult to be not at least, familiar with almost all of the like Hitchcock classics from just the osmosis of like whether it's Vertigo or North by Northwest, or Psycho, like the movies have been kind of, referenced, paid homage to so many different times, so many different ways. So it's hard to walk in totally blind. But for this one, yeah, I enjoyed this movie a ton. I think that the play it's based on is great, and I really like any Hitchcock movie that's either based on a play or has a very like stage-bound structure, like Rear Window or Rope. Anything like that is very cool. I always love what he can do with suspense in such a claustrophobic kind of environment. For this one, I think it's really strong having these like real time sequences. Like nothing is, the film doesn't have a lot of cuts. It has like one location. It very much feels like you're locked in watching a play on screen. And even down to the intermission and stuff like that. And that's a really cool experience. I always like that. Um, I think the suspense is really great. I think the big thing is just the time, I think, flies by really fast when I'm watching this. It feels way shorter than it is. It feels like, oh snap, movie's over. Like, and the final ending, I think, with the key is just such a clever piece of writing. It's such a good setup, ties everything into a nice, neat bow. I kind of get the criticism Clay was mentioning about Grace Kelly not being in enough of the second half. But on the other hand, I think it's kind of makes it a little more exciting in the sense that you have the person who's at risk isn't in control of their own like fate, which is kind of something you see a lot in Hitchcock, where like someone's endangered and they don't know it. Like that's Hitchcock's famous quote on suspense is when the audience knows something that the character doesn't. And I think that kind of works here. You see that a few different times and how, especially the Grace Kelly character acts after the husband, Ray Milland, has already made his plans to like have her killed for all of this stuff, for her like infidelity and also for her money. So I think it's really kind of textbook in terms of how to create great suspense. Yeah, I enjoy it a lot. Probably I'm gonna go with a 5, but it's a little closer to a 4.5 than like Rio Bravo was. Like it's less of a solid, easy 5 for me, but I'm gonna still go 5 because it's very much a movie I could watch at any time and I'd find it like perfect. Like there's very few problems for me for this one. And especially coming out the same year as Rear Window. And that might be part of it. Like I think Rear Window's more of a, well, not to give my thoughts away, but it's, maybe more of a consistent like film for me in terms of watching it. But this is also great. So I don't want to let how much I like Rear Window overshadow this one. So, just in the sake of that, for the sake of that, I'll give it a 5. Um, and yeah, so that is our thoughts. And now I'm gonna popcorn it over to Mr. Castleman, who has recorded a review himself, and watch it now.
Yeah, this is Max. Yep, I was supposed to be on this episode, but I'm bad at math. It's like EST and PST and CST, and I don't fucking know. But yeah, Dial M for Murder. I watched it. It's really good. I mean, I don't know if it would be in my top 10 Hitchcock movies, but only because his filmography is so strong. It's a great movie. Um, I mean, Grace Kelly is wonderful in this. For a lot of it, she has to be in kind of this liminal state where she's just acting kind of, shocked, where she's dazed, can't really process what's happening around her. And she does that state that must be a hard thing to act, and she pulls it off really well. She's really convincing. um I love her acting and the acting of the guy who played the guy who tries to kill her, in that scene with the scissors. And it's so like dramatic and heightened, the two of them. It's almost like silent film acting. It's really neat. um, and Ray Milland, is a great, really underrated actor. He's super evil in this, very convincing. The best performance in the movie is probably the guy who plays the cop. Like that guy is like so incredibly likable. Like, at first, you're frustrated with him because he can't see the truth of the situation. But that final scene with him where he puts all the pieces together and turns out, to be a good, upstanding guy and make sure that, that justice is done, right, is just wonderful. Um, I don't know if these are spoilers. If these are spoilers, cut that part, and I'll just say that the guy who played the detective is really good and likable and fun. Yeah, but for me, oh, and I should also say Hitchcock wise, his like little flourishes, because he never just does a movie in a very plain, basic way. He always brings a little something to it, some like style and panache. And in this, it's the court case. The way the court case is handled is very surreal. There's that use of like weird, colorful backgrounds, like he did in Vertigo a little bit, and it's mostly just on Grace Kelly's face, and then in the background, like the judge and the lawyers and the jury talking, and it just stays on her, and it's a very, very effective sequence. Um, so yeah, Hitchcock is a wonderful director. I don't think that's news to anybody. But this is great. This movie is it's kind of similar to Rope, I think, because Rope, it was based on a stage play. I believe I'm like 90% sure it was based on a stage play, and it's like it all takes place in that one room, right? I mean, Rope is one continuous shot, or it would have been if technology at the time had allowed for that. But um this movie is very similar. Almost this entire movie does take place in one room. In fact, I think the entire film takes place in one room. I mean, you get some shots out the window and stuff, but it's all taking place in this living room, and it is based on a stage play, and it does feel stagey, so maybe that's why it wouldn't be like a top 10 Hitchcock film for me, because if he's allowed, more environments, more opportunity to show off his style in movies that are especially important to me, like, Strangers on a Train, which is my favorite Hitchcock film, like in Vertigo, like in Psycho, there's just more opportunity for him to show off with all of these kind of different settings and whatnot. But, with the confines of this story, the very limited palette he's able to work with, he makes it really compelling and fun. And yeah, it's a movie that really, holds your attention and compels you, even though it's very dialogue heavy. Um, the dialogue is sharp enough and the performances are, multifaceted and interesting enough that it stays engaging and it's really well plotted. So, yeah, it's a great film. Not one of my absolute favorite Hitchcock films, but definitely like right below that tier. And I would give it a high 4.5 out of 5.